Good morning. I've been debating whether to do a show this morning. I have decided to go ahead and do it. Welcome to Who Am I? Who Am I? That show that explores the greater questions we got going on. Who are we? Where did we come from? Where are we going? How did we get here? I actually don't really explore how did we get here other than the fact that we might have been genetically modified. So we got here in the usual way. We were a species who evolved on the planet to a point, and then somebody came along and gave us a little bump, a little evolutionary boost. I don't speculate as to who that might be. It's none of my business. It's not my specialty. I think that collectively, as society, we should acknowledge such things as extraterrestrials and the possibility of our connection to them. I think the reason that we don't is because there are interests that would like us not to look too closely at what we might find. We would realize that our own society has been engineered to burn fossil fuel. It didn't really start out that way, but it just sort of turned into that way. And the momentum, it worked. We've done it. But now we've come to a crisis point in our society where we can't keep expanding the way we want to expand. You know, our idea of it should be natural, that things just get more and more and more, that natural instinct that we have about that isn't wrong. It's misplaced. The way our society is structured because of the burning of fossil fuels and the way we do things like in order to build a neighborhood, instead of figuring out a way how to, attach our pods, for instance, to the existing rocks, and then I have wonderful ideas about what would be possible. You know, what I really ought to do is write them down in a science fiction novel so that people can see the possibility and then go into their own hearts and minds and figure out, well, if not that, something. But what we always do is we completely tear down the natural landscape, and then we build our roads and our structures. And the roads, the reason that we have to do that is because our vehicles have to drag on the surface of the planet. But the second part of what I get excited about so early in the morning to talk about for an hour, the second part of what I get excited about is the fact that we could understand gravity. I don't know why society feels like they've given up, or they've left it as a carrot right there where you just can't quite, people, gravitons or whatever people talk about. I'm not sure what a graviton is. It might be a measurement of something, but the fact of the matter is where gravity comes from is from spin. It comes from spin. Everything is spinning. And not just all the stuff that you see. The whole field is spinning. And the spinning of that field is what the dark matter and dark energy is. It's the spinning of that field. That's the 96% of the energy that you can't see. And the little bit that you can see, that's the stuff. That's where the Plancks have organized into, we are extensions of source energy. And the whole thing is vibrational. And the vibration precedes the form. That's the whole point of when I bring up my pointing to the study of cymatics. That's to help us understand that the world is vibrational. Cymatics is the study of the relationship of vibration and form. I show, excuse me, I show these two pictures. This one is, this is a digital cymatic device of some sort. You put a vibration through this and it'll produce a different pattern. Every vibration, different vibration, different pattern. And it spits out beautiful patterns. And look at how they're all coming from a center. Well, that has to do with the way the device works, but that's the way the universe works. And then the second picture I show is illustrating these same devices, these same patterns in nature. Upper right and lower left, that's the metal plate with the granular medium, and I wasn't going to go into this. But the reason I bring this up, and actually the only reason I ever bring up the cymatic thing, is just to reinforce your realization that the truth of the matter is that... Oh, that's not the one I want. I have all these backgrounds. Beautiful backgrounds. My snow series. I was right here to start with. I can go back here. The point of all that is that we are indeed living in a vibrational universe, and we are vibrational beings in a vibrational universe, and we have an inner being, an overview aspect that is vibrationally trying to show us the way. And the way lies down the path of a spirit or a vibrational frequency. We are radio stations. We are transmitters and receivers, and what we transmit is what we get back, is what we receive. Actually, Bashar tells us that the overmind is the conceiver. It's the one who conceives it, who births it, who is it, who's the conceiver. And your physical brain is the perceiver. It's the radio tower. And your physical mind, your no. Your physical brain is the receiver, and your physical mind is the perceiver. Conceiver, receiver, perceiver. Also esoteric, and yet not, because this applies to everything. It applies to everything. How can you inject that spirit, that frequency that you want to get back from the world and from others? How do you project it? It could be expressed in a lot of ways, but it should start in the kindness of your thoughts, in the kindness of your thinking, in the kindness of the way you are interpreting the bigger picture out there. Because as you start to interpret the bigger picture out there, the one that's farther away from you, in a kinder way, and that's easier for me to do, honestly. It's easier for me to be what's the word? Generous of heart about the Hitler situation from a century in between us and a continent away. Anyway, I don't want to get lost in this. Who am I? Who am I? What is this discussion I have every morning? Well, it's me trying to pull together all of the most interesting topics I have found on my journey. Law of attraction. Oh my gosh, this is really interesting. How you manifest, how you get what you want. How do you get what you want? Well, apparently what it is you learn to focus more than what you've been doing on what you want. You may have to focus on what you've got for half a second here and there. Just like when you're driving your car, you do have to keep your eye on the road, but you can't keep your mind or your vision off of where you're going either, or you'll come to a dead stop and just be staring at the gravel in the road. It's Esther's analogy is why you don't put your windshield in the floorboard of your car. You put it in front of you because you got to keep your eyes forward. You have to keep the center of your focus is really on where you're going, and you have a sense of where you are. It's that kind of thing. So keep your sense of where you are, in a way, but keep your eyes on what you prefer. And actually, Cervantes told that beautiful story about the magical effect of a being on the world, even if they aren't really quite in touch with reality. If they have their eye firmly on that impossible dream, the kind of effect that it can have on even thieves and whores. Mule skinners, actually, and whores. And innkeepers and all of that. If you know what story I'm referring to, it would be Man of La Mancha. One of my favorite stories from, I just loved that musical. So good. It spoke to me. It said something to me about humankind and human nature and the meaning of life and all of that. I do want to come at this from a practical standpoint, because from a practical standpoint, I heard Nassim Haramein use the term, and not just in the... So I mostly get the term from the movie, The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. But of course, if it's true, it's going to be out there. Over unity devices, people. They are possible. That is what all of us should keep in the center of our knowing. Just weave that in there somewhere. And now, as our young people start casting around for what to do, I'll tell you what to do to make your fortune and all of our fortunes vastly change, vastly better. Go out there and figure out that over unity device and put it up on the internet. Be freaking famous. Be a hero. Be a hero. This is I have another analogy from a book nobody's ever read. I know a couple of people who have read it, but when B.Z. Gundolinu gives the star drive to the hegemony, or hegemony, I don't know how you really pronounce that. I pronounce it hegemony, because the G ought to be soft, right? But I've heard it pronounced hegemony. I don't know. That's from the Snow Queen. Actually, that one, he did it in the book Land's End. But it's the same idea. Somebody has to give the star drive to humanity and perform the great heroic act. They can't go to the patent office and get a patent and then go manufacture it in the normal way and make their fortune. They can't do that. It's not going to work that way. And if they are just using the technology to do their own little peach orchard or whatever, their own little family something, then they aren't big enough to withstand the storm that's going to snatch it away from them. I don't mean to ramble. Over unity devices, people. What is an over unity device? It is a device that is capable of putting out more energy than it takes to run it. there are, according to a number of sources, for instance, I saw on the Thrive 2 movie, it didn't seem to be somebody that was tapping directly into source energy, into the field, but they were kind of. They were casting out into the universe, and they had locked onto a frequency that was just out there. It appeared to be broadcasting from somewhere. Now, whether it was artificial or whether it's some kind of a celestial entity that is, going to be a few million years going, so we don't need to really worry about the source. He didn't know, but it was there, and he had tagged his device was running on it. I think that was the one from the Thrive 2 movie. If it's not, then there's yet another one. But then there's lots of examples in the movie The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. So go watch that movie. It's on YouTube. If you're listening to me on YouTube, I know you have YouTube. Over Unity devices. Those which we can tap into the 0 point energy field. This notion that you can't produce more energy than it takes to run is because you can't create energy out of nothing. That's where the false point is. You're not creating energy out of nothing. There is nowhere where there is no energy. There is nowhere where there is nothing. It is even at 0 degrees Kelvin out in the emptiness of space. There is this, or in the emptiness of space, this 0 point energy field is roiling with almost infinite energy, and it's connecting all things. It's connecting all of us. It's matrixing us together, and it runs on frequencies, and that's why the spirit of things is so important. That the first thing that you do is you get yourself into a state of open-minded, open-hearted, data flowing, energy flowing allowance. And then it's like peace first. And then what? And then what? Anything. But don't evaluate anything from anywhere other than this good-humored, high-flying platform of who the whole self of who you are really is. And how did I just jump from unified physics to that? Well, it's all spinning space-time, and so are you. And there is an origin of your spin. There is a starting point. It's not really a starting point. It's a center point. And if you can find your center, the center of your center of your center of your center of your center, ooh, that's how you do it, isn't it, Nassim? I've been wondering, I have an eyesight condition that I would greatly love to fix. And I know that it could be fixed if I could believe how it could be fixed and see how it could be fixed. And then imagine that pathway connecting from where I am to where I would have the information from where it's fixed. From where, especially since mine is a genetic condition. It absolutely is a genetic condition. Well, I mean, there's more to it than that, because only 25% of the people with this genetic marker express it as an eyesight condition. Now, the doctors say that my kids should go get tested genetically, and I'm wondering why. Because right now, all they would do is worry because nobody has a cure for them. Stargardt's disease is what it is. But I absolutely believe that it is possible for me to figure out how to find the mental pathway, the pathway in consciousness that is the reflection of the outer expression that is me, and repair it from the inside. I absolutely believe I can do it. I just don't know how. Maybe my eyesight has to get a little worse so that when I heal myself, it's more spectacular to me. I don't know. I would like to figure out how to do it, though. Who am I? Who am I, by the way? Over unity is possible. We should be weaving our life, our society, our very existence. We should be cueing from the land around us. We should be trying to play nice with as many other beings as we can manage. We should be re-gardening this lovely, lovely planet. We should never be taking up paradise and putting in a parking lot. We should start learning how to be in the business of tearing up parking lots and re-establishing Eden points. It's coming, people. And the only thing that's standing in the way of all of our dreams, all of the things that we can imagine it would be cool that we could do, bloom the desert. What are the wonderful things that we can imagine? I can imagine materials, like the study of materials. When we understand this quantum field, we will understand how you can summon, how you can pull forth form from the very quantum field itself, like a 3D printer. Summon the patterns that we want into reality by understanding how reality comes into being, how virtual particles dance back and forth across the event horizon of the 0-point energy field. That's what everything is doing. The ones that have more momentum look solid to you, but they're all dancing back and forth across this event horizon. Virtual particles that are really real particles. It's interesting. When we would understand how this works, we could pull forth materials that we don't have access to now. And we could maybe build our home structures with less footprint upon the land. How about that? And when our transportation devices no longer have wheels that have to track on the land, then all of a sudden we don't have to slather the world in concrete and asphalt. And when we understand that we don't need wires to transmit either energy or communications of any sort, I mean, hell, cell phones and radio and stuff like that proved some of that. We still haven't got it with the energy thing. We still think we need to produce it somewhere and then sell it to people through wires in their homes. But we don't. We don't need to do that. And as soon as collective society figures that out and quits doing what they're doing, but the reason that we do what we're doing is because, well, we don't have anything else in place. And so we cut down the trees and we form plastic out of petroleum and all of that. But so many other things are possible. I don't know. It's one of the reasons why we get interrupted by catastrophes. And those catastrophes actually end up serving us. Catastrophes like the World War. I was watching something where the guy who's the head of Mind Valley, and I can't remember, the fox at the head of Mind Valley, I can't remember what his name is though, was talking to Nassim, and I think they were in Estonia. And it was from 7 months ago. And apparently he's got lots of family who suffered enormous tragedy. How do you make sense of that? Well, how you make sense of that is you see us as mankind and you see the lesson that World War II taught us. Well, what is the lesson that World War II taught us? Well, it taught us a lot of lessons. I mean, when you study what was going on at the top of that, the engine that drove World War II was a certain human being who wasn't done with World War One. So I like to call it the World War Parts 1 and 2 instead of World Wars 1 and 2, because that implies a potential 3 and 4, and I don't think that we need another one. I think the one was plenty, so it's the World War Parts 1 and 2. And the illustration that we got was where that kind of thinking gets you. It was the purest, rawest, most, it was uncluttered by the illustration of what that mindset was all about, what it stood for, what it believed about us and them. It had a built-in, grinding, angry, blameful, self-righteous spirit about it. That was what the problem was from the very beginning. That spirit needed to be stood up to right from the beginning. That bully spirit, that angry spirit, but what that is, in the context of the show that I do, what all of that is a kind of Shiva energy that is in place, that is there to tear it down. Its explicit purpose is to tear down the structures. And so why does this energy even form? That's the question. Why does that energy even form? It's because we're out there blindly building structures that are not accurate, that are not who we are, that are not in alignment with the rest of the field, with the flow of... Now, we can be our human selves to a point. We can be diverse, we can be... There are so many things that we can be, that we need to focus on, by the way. But we need to be in alignment with the rest of the field, with the rest of biology, with the sustainability of the field around us. We need to have more win-win-win-win. We have to have more beings under our win-win umbrella. It can't just all be human beings against all the rest of the species. No matter what, we prevail. It actually is not a win-lose proposition, although we have been making it so. And it just goes to how agreeable the universe actually is, how reflective, how perfectly reflective the universe actually is. You get back what you put out, because you are equipped to perceive from your side of it only from the frequency that you're broadcasting on. That's why everything comes back to you that way. Well, that's one of the reasons. But you're actually also broadcasting to the field that is listening to you. And it is all swirling with you. We're all swirling. It's spinning. We are whirling. We are whirling. It doesn't look like we are, because most of us, well, all of us here on planet Earth, are almost spinning at the same exact speed. I'm going to spin off in my life, and you're going to spin off into your life, and you have different... We're all kind of... We're spinning at different rates. We all have our own spin going on. That's why, put your own spin on it, and think about the language, I'm talking literally. It is all spin. And there are two organizations of spin, as far as I can see. One is an inward, one's an innie, the other's an outie. And it relates to gravity and electromagnetic fields too, actually. It relates to the outside, to the cosmos, and how that's working too, as above, so below, as without, so within is kind of a thing going on too. There's an echo in your consciousness of the frame of the field around you and how this works. So the innie is gravity and love and the organization of the spirit of love and peace and fun and joy and abundance and beauty. That's one of them. The other one is an outie. It's a spin of chaos too. Also, it's like the storms of war and hurricanes, and there's an outie spin, an innie spin, and an outie spin. Somehow, mysteriously, there's that. To us, on living in human bodies on planet Earth, the lesson there is that there is an organization that is trying to organize you, but it's very loose. It's up to you to call, to decide what you're going to do with it. What would be fun for you to do with it? What do you want to organize? A softball team, a business, a family, a picnic, a single day, a garage, a 1 acre homestead. What are you trying to organize? A junk drawer, a kitchen, a business. What is your intention? What is your purpose? What is the spirit that you ride on as you do it? All of that is everything. And so that's the aspects of it you need to focus on while you are addressing the real world. Part of that is because of your actual nature. You are your overview self and your physical conventional self. And your overview self is only ever positive, or at least I believe it's only ever positive. And if there are actually great entities capable of harnessing and sustaining the memory and the continuum with the same kind of rage hall as the beings of the isness are capable of sustaining, I would be surprised. I think that darkness is a fleeting thing. It doesn't have the momentum of the positive, because the positive is the reality of evolution and experience and atoms and the galaxies and stuff for eternity. What darkness could measure up to that, to the isness of that? Abraham says that there's no source of darkness, and I believe that that's true. I think that what is possible, and the human mind is a really vast thing, especially since consciousness, in a way, there is a consciousness at the center, at the heart of the universe, that as a human being, you're capable of lining up with, aligning your frequencies up with. But wow, what was I going to say about that? It's interesting. I'm off on tracks that I just have no idea where my mind is taking me into. I just know that I am coming from a very non-resistant and loving, kind place. I know why we haven't had over Unity devices before now. It's because we really couldn't be trusted with that kind of energy responsibility. For everyone to have clean, free energy, it's a mind-boggling, imaginatory exercise to think about what that would be like. In a lot of ways, it would be wonderful, and I am minded of a small orchard community in Canada that we watched on Still Standing. that the orchard, although it was beautiful trees, they all were still producing apples, but they had to close the orchard down. Some of the trees got, I don't know, some of the trees are still there, but they couldn't maintain them. You have to do things to maintain apple trees. For one thing, to either fight the natural bugs that are going to, you know, either to fight them naturally or to spray them. Either way, apples have worms unless you do something about it. And then you have trucks and staff and boxing and shipping and I don't know all the things involved in running an apple orchard. But this apple orchard couldn't make it because the cost of running it was too high. I find that tragic and unacceptable when over unity is physically possible. Whenever you tell that to somebody, just bring it up in casual conversation to a conventionally educated scientific person. Over unity, a device that puts out more energy than it takes us to run the device. That doesn't sound possible. That doesn't sound possible. That sounds like it goes against one of the laws of physics. You can't create energy out of nothing. Well, that is a fallacious viewpoint because you're not creating energy out of nothing. There is nowhere where there is not almost an infinite amount of energy everywhere. 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 It is this 0-point energy field. It is the matrix that connects us all. This divine matrix. So whatever you do, it's like that Moody Blues song. Wherever you go, whatever you do, whatever you say it with love. Is that what it is? Say it with love. And I'm not going to try to sing that because it won't, but just go look that one up. That's a beautiful sentiment I would interject right here. Say it with love. That's the whole message. We are one being. And the only way that we're going to be able to operate as the efficient, abundant, creative, collective creature that we really are, we're going to have to be nicer to each other. We're going to have to quit trying to punish each other. We're going to have to quit dropping bombs on each other. I think it's absolutely unacceptable for the United States to have handed over weaponry to Israel with no conditions, no conditionality that they stop their damn war in Gaza. Everyone with all the weapons, drop the damn weapons and come to a bargaining table. Feed the people. Take care of the people. Get the medics in there. Get the food in there. Get the bombs and the guns the hell out of there and get somebody, mediators in there to, and in spite of that, I really don't want to elect the autocrat to go fix things, honestly. I think that the others are more reasonable and yet so crazy. It's not nearly as black and white as you think that it is. But I know that his is a personality that I do not want to be seen as at the head of my country. I don't like him. That's one of my biggest problems with him. And the authoritarian psychosis is an issue. That's a Carl Jung concept, and calling it authoritarian psychosis. It's a kind of psychic blindness that sees a single way and discounts all the others and imagines that this one way that it sees is more of more validity than anybody else's view. And it's quite a dangerous thing, actually. Hitler had the classic, the whole Hitler scenario and the psychosis that his whole country went through, because they should have been able to see that. They should have been able to hear his angry, blameful rhetoric and spot it for the flawed philosophy, the us versus them flawed philosophy that it was. But they didn't. And then when we saw them behaving that way, it was so easy for us to fall into an us versus them because, well, of course, us, we're the sane ones. You're the angry ones trying to enslave the world. We've got to do something about that. And so we fell into the us versus them mental paradigm. And of course, it would be easy to do that. But what you've got to understand on the ground, at the ground level, people have got to start snapping out of it and understanding that the problem is the polarity itself is the evil. It's the wicked, inflating monster, the demon that is growing in the land it's a spirit thing. It's not and it can possess any one of us once we scatter it around. It's this Shiva demonic energy. I know that all sounds kooky and wacky, but my whole point, my whole effort in this is to try to bring those kinds of concepts into a matter-of-fact place in this world. I know that if you want to pick a fight with what I say and push against it, it would be easy to call what I say piffle. And I don't blame you. I don't blame you. But if you would open your mind and see what it is that I'm trying to say, our behavior affects each other. When we build systems that do not sustain us all, that don't include us all, that don't allow opportunity for us all, opportunity for good health, healthy food, opportunity for mental, social abundance, expansion in all directions. If it leaves any of us out, the ones who are left out are left frightened and angry. And that's the Shiva energy. That's actually the Shiva energy. But it's created at a point when others are creating systems for us that aren't in alignment with who we really are. That's when those systems are in a bullseye, ready to be knocked down by something, a war or a hurricane, or if something's going to knock it down because it's not a war or an extreme climate event, because we've let that get out of control. I actually have crazy wacko beliefs about what is potentially possible if most of humanity could get thinking in positive directions in certain fields that I think we can. No, I'm not going to say my wackiest stuff. It'll turn people off. But we are dreaming this into being, by the way. Did you know that? We're dreaming it into being. And it's falling into place based on what our feelings about it are. Our feelings about it are our higher selves guiding us about things, about the reality, about stuff around us. So the dreaming, I'm air quoting, the dreaming is way more real than you think it is. And the real is way more dreamlike than you think it is. It kind of goes both ways. And so when you can find a way to address this great reality from a playful nature, from a playful standpoint, the whole essence of it becomes more clay-like and more malleable. You're more able to accomplish things with the creatures around you, and if you can find the win-win position instead of, sometimes you might take the self-righteous and this is the form that all of us should understand, and I'm in the right place, and where are you? I know somebody who sometimes takes that position. You have to, at all times, address the win-win point of whatever being's in front of you, even if it is a teenager or a millennial child or a perhaps a captain, and you are their ranking officer, or I don't know. Whoever you're dealing with, all of the relationships that we have need to be coming from a win-win position and not battles of wills all the time to see, which one of us is going to, prevail in this. There is room for us all. Now, I do believe that the injection of fresh, literal energy into our collective social lives is going to add a lot to the equation. It's going to add a lot of energy to the equation, literal energy. And a lot of people are going to be able to just go off and do their own thing because it will take a lot less money to do so. Because right now, an inordinately large amount of your capital, of whatever you can come up with, is going to energy costs. To do all kinds of things, everything from climate control, especially those of us who live in both a hot and cold land. It's too cold in the winter to be without a climate control, and it's too hot in the summer to be without climate control. And so you have to have climate control. At least in Phoenix, you only need summer control. You don't much need the winter. It does get a little chilly there, though. I remember it freezing when I was younger. I remember an 18 degrees in the Phoenix area. I don't know if that happens anymore. We need energy to run our lights, run our computers, run our transportation devices. All of these things take energy. And the energy that we get right now is from fossil fuels. And we have a small first world, a growing third world, an enormously growing population, and ecological crises everywhere. We've got wars that won't quit. And one of the reasons that, for instance, you don't hear so much about the war in Ukraine lately. I should go look and see what the status of that is, what's going on over there. But the only reason that Putin has any power and his oligarchs have any power is because they're all oil oligarchs. They control, through their control of the energy of they control all the resources, actually, but the oil reserves are many, 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 many billions of dollars of that. I don't know how many billions of dollars of that. Lots of it. If the energy equation was shifted, the power structure all over the planet would shift drastically. This centralized, enormously centralized power structure would break apart. And part of that you want and part of it you don't want. You don't want it to bust into a jillion kingdoms, all of them heavily armed. And now you've got things like, what kinds of things do our imagination come up with? What was the Mad Max kind of scenarios? Or where the different warlords are fighting with each other for the scraps that are left. This is not the vision I'm talking about. I'm talking about a vision where all human beings could go off wherever they wanted to and do their own thing. Now, there's going to be a lot of it that is going to be this is where us understanding our own psychology and our own psychological construction, our own vibrational construction, to have faith, to know that every being has an inner being. And so that doesn't mean that they're going to just you could work with that, is what I'm saying. You could work with that. You could work with that knowledge. You could communicate from that direction. Your alignment with your inner being will give you all the inspiration to communicate most thoroughly and effectively with all of their inner beings. And so your job is not to worry about other people and their inner beings, but to worry about you and your inner being. Because the more in alignment you are with your own inner self, the more magically and beneficially you will be inspired in your own actions to benefit the rest of the group unto a win-win scenario. Do you get it? Do you get it? Do you get who we are? We are all extensions of source energy. And this source energy is this Planck field that is spinning. When it goes into physical organization, and you can see it, and we define it as matter, it's spinning. And when it isn't doing that, we call it space. But it's still a solid Planck field that is spinning. We are spinning. And things that come at you, things that you could start thinking about how things spin into your awareness and then out of your awareness. As you walk around through your life, as people come in and out of your life, or if you're trying to attract someone else into your orbit, you can understand that we are all spinning. We are all light beings traveling through space and time that in a way is imaginary. As soon as any particle starts to spin, it joins the rest of the spin of the rest of the field. And when you add all of that up, I believe that if you added up every single spin that we know, and then if that doesn't quite get you there, then you add a few more that we must not know about, I bet it all adds up to the speed of light. Every you add them all up. You can get quite a ways down the road with just the ones that we actually know the numbers to. How fast the Earth is spinning around its own axis. And then you combine that with how fast the Earth is going around the sun. And then you combine that with how fast the sun is flying around the outer arm of this great galaxy that we're in. And then the galaxy itself is whirling in a bigger cluster of galaxies, and then that cluster is in a super cluster of galaxies, and that is probably churning in a toroidal motion around the whole integer of the universe that we are in, which is probably a black hole. It's undoubtedly a black hole. For sure it's a black hole. And it big banged from a particle that got flung off from another black hole universe at a denser, in a denser dimension, that flung a Planck off, or a proton or a Planck-sized particle was flung off of that universe through its Hawking radiation, and when it hit this space, went boom, big bang. And that's how it happens. And there are foaming universes. It's a process that goes back all the way back. Anyway, that's how we connect to everything. And all of this structure is exchanging its information through this Planck field, through the jiggle, through the reverberation of this jiggle of space-time. And that's what zero-point energy is. That's what the matrix is, and that's what matrixes us all together. Reality, this energy field, and it's everywhere, and you can tap into it, and it isn't creating energy out of nothing. And as soon as our collective commercial selves recognize this truth, we will get on with the business of putting our minds to figuring out exactly how to do that then. Oh, that's the field we're sitting in? Oh, then I can imagine the possibilities. Now I've got to focus somewhere and figure out how to do this. Well, I'm not an electrical engineer, but there are people who are. And the travesty is that the commercial, conventional, in our universities, people who are the electrical engineers, they don't know that over unity is possible. Those are the people who should know. And why aren't they working on it? Because it's all captured. It's all captured by the fossil fuel industry and the solar power industry and the electric car industry and all of the versions of energy that involve creating billionaires in a centralized power system. But it doesn't have to be that way. We could shatter this into a jillion shards of diversity by releasing the energy into the world, by releasing the information that over unity is possible. That should be broadcast from the top, from every tower, from every minaret, from every church bell, from every state department, from every community center, from every playground, from everywhere. Over unity is possible, people. We do not have to be slaves to fossil fuel any longer. Only as long as it takes us to figure out how to plug in. The very idea that it's possible to plug in is what has been kept from us. And the only reason it's been possible to keep it from us is because we didn't know who we were and we didn't know how this matrix worked. But as we learn who we are and as we figure out how this matrix works, we are going to be able to plug directly into source energy. And then those orchards, those gorgeous orchards that couldn't survive because they couldn't sell the apples for a high enough price to pay for all of the fuel costs and the whatever. You would be able to find people to live at the orchard and help with the apples if you could feed them and give them space to sleep, apples to eat, a job, a bit of money. You could afford that. You just can't afford the energy price. You can't afford the energy price, but with the energy being free and clean, now it makes sense to resequester the carbon into the ground using technology we've already invented. Now it makes sense to run the desalinators and all up and down the inhospitable coasts, previously inhospitable coasts, because there was no fresh water. You can create all the fresh water you want now and rebloom any desert you want to. That kind of vision for humanity is now possible, and us collectively, we can put our heads together and come up with collective projects like that. Don't you want to do that? Aren't you tired of fighting with each other? Aren't you tired of us not knowing who we are? Not knowing that we really are a single organism, a single morphogenetic field that could work together in love and harmony? You just got to focus that way. You just got to understand where the darkness comes from. The darkness comes from a willingness to go into places in your mind where your inner being isn't. Okay, you can go there and you can think thoughts and you can even see some kind of relative truth to them, but they have no relevance to what you want, because what you want is what your inner being is looking at. Trust that and just go where the light is. Just go where it feels good. Believe that it's true, that your your model of biotechnology is designed to feel good more than feel bad. You're supposed to feel good. It's a gauge. It's a gauge. And when you don't feel good, there's something off, it's not something normal. You're supposed to feel good. And actually, if we would understand how to plug each of our own selves into our own source, and then turn and look back at the same world through different eyes, you would have different ideas about how to fix things, about what would be better, about what would be kinder, would be nicer, more loving, more fun, more efficient, more beautiful, more free, more diverse, greater ideas, better ideas, more efficient. I already said that, but it's worth saying it again. More abundant, more joyful. That is who we are designed, that's how we are designed to focus. But then we are taught to focus a different way. We are taught to focus on what is, and grindingly so. And more than that, you should be focusing on the aspect of things that is not going well so that you can fix it. That's the reasoning. But the energy doesn't work that way. That's the problem with that. And it assumes that the physical mind is entirely in charge of the project, when actually that's not true at all. There is an overview self that is really trying to give you better advice than your physical mind can come up with, and better ideas to go farther places in more exciting ways than your physical mind is allowing you to, because you are only seeing the very specificity of only the project at hand. You don't realize that the project at hand could be a launching point, or is trying to be a launching point, for greater and greater and more fun and abundant, joyful, fast-moving things. But that would all be moving on joyful excitement and expectation and allowance. And if you aren't up to speed with that, so the idea is you use your physical mind to jack your feelings. All of the things that you believe and notice, and all the way that you're making your choices and stuff, use your physical mind to get yourself into a state of cheerful optimism. You're pointed that direction. You feel good, and at that point, that's the point where you utterly drop physical expectations about exactly how that's going to play out. You have an idea about it, and you got yourself to that place, and now the answer is not to now get grindingly and painfully in touch with all of the details of it. It's allow it to unfold itself. When you grind into the details, you lock in those details in a way that they can't shift now either. Nothing can get better than this thing that you have conceived of in your physical mind. You haven't allowed your... Anyway, that's a little bit of the mechanics of how that works. I know Bashar is the one who tells you to... you're following your excitement is what you're supposed to be doing. And you use your physical mind to find your excitement, to... enhance your excitement, or to, I don't know what the word would be, but then when you get there, drop your physical expectation utterly about how exactly, and then allow greater things to happen. This takes an act of faith, a knowing that there is even any reason to do that. If you drop it, then nothing's going to happen, is what you think. But if you would drop your expectation but hold your faith and keep your eyes open for the main chance, for the thing, just keep, I don't know. This is all new to me too, by the way. New to me too. And I try to keep the spirits of the people around me in order as we move through this project. Don't anybody fall into any kind of grumpy Gus syndrome based on any specific detail that's bothering them. My philosophy is if that detail is bothering you right now, then move to something that isn't bothering you right now, because we've got 85 chores still on the ground around me. There is no reason to go for the one that's bothering you. Go for the one that's calling you. The one that says, hey, I'm the one you want to do. It is my philosophy that the more that you do things that you do not want to do, the more you mess things up. And us as humanity finding our way to get in touch with the reality of that and not devolve into chaos, that's going to be a project. It's going to be quite interesting. I feel now like I've opened a whole bunch of cans of worms that I need to close up. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll riff about it again. I don't know. Who am I? Who am I? Who are we? Where did we come from? Where are we going? Why are we here? What's the point? What's the object of the exercise? Well, I think the object of the exercise is joyful sustainability. And so that is what my life is dedicated to, the understanding thereof, and any assistance in consciousness that I can contribute. That is my promise, my oath, my intention. And I'll be back tomorrow to do the same thing. And until then, peace out. I hope you have a wonderful day. Do the best you can for as long as you can. And if you find yourself in a negative space, well, we'll talk about that tomorrow. Until then, I love you. I truly do. Let's all do this together. We're in it together anyway. But do it in your own source-inspired individual way. Your own authentic way. That's the most important part of this whole discussion. And until tomorrow, may the source be with you.